Do 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 do. Department of Bunny Efficiency, a Monkey-Joe story, Epilogue. After thanking St. Anthony of Padua along with the 299 bunnies who had miraculously appeared at Mason City's Central Park and helped deliver the dozen gross of 1,728 Easter eggs in far less than an hour, Graham Cleese, our absolutely giddy, dope, trained, and highly resilient Mason City Easter Bunny, exchanged score upon score of Happy Easter declarations with his band of 300 before returning to Des Moines. Having delivered the contents of his Easter egg carrier to the homes of Mason City's children, Graham knew it was time to press his EEC's retrieval button. Feeling both triumphant and humble, Graham prepared to press the button that would signal the dope transfer team that he was ready to return home. He pressed the retrieval button and waited to be transported. He waited, and he waited, and he waited before pressing the button again, and again, and again. A tiny tremor of fear rippled through Graham's soul. He reminded himself that there was no need to panic. He was in his mother Beatrix's hometown, a town where he could get help from his relatives and his mom's friends. Though his pep talk to self hadn't eliminated his anxiety, it had lowered it to a point where, though his stomach still felt queasy, his ability to reason had returned. Whispering to himself, "Breathe, bunny boy, breathe," as he did exactly that, he crossed himself and softly prayed, "Glorious St. Jude, with faith in your goodness, I ask for your help today. As one of Christ's chosen apostles, you remain a pillar and foundation of his church on earth. Please intercede for us all, gracious St. Jude, and be with us in our daily toil and in all our necessities. In Christ's name we appeal to you. Amen," before crossing himself again and again, pushing his retrieval button. Whether divine intervention or coincidence, upon Graham's 1-2 punch of technology plus prayer, he was transported back to Des Moines, where chaos ruled. Arriving in Des Moines, it was none other than Stanley Christopher and Corsetine Edward who ruled the ensuing chaos at the Bunny transfer station. Chaos ran rampant as our dope duo scrambled to bring home dozens and dozens of Iowa Easter bunnies who, having completed their task, were kept wondering what was happening as they waited to be retrieved. The chaos within the transfer station was so intense and widespread that a uniformed Easter Bunny captain had been called in to ride herd over the kerfluffled fluffle, said captain currently standing by the transporter repeating, "Step down from the transporter and line up to return your EEC. Step down from the transporter and line up to return your EEC," over and over. Graham, stepping down into chaos, asked the captain, "Is everything all right, Captain Holly?" "What? No, everything is not all right," Captain Holly hissed. "Oh, it's you, Graham," he added more amicably upon recognizing him. "No time to talk. Turn your EEC in and go home." "Yes, sir," Graham replied, hurrying to the end of a dozen bunny-long EEC return line, where he queued directly behind his neighbor Bluebell. "Bluebell," he whispered. "Bluebell," he repeated. "What's going on?" Bluebell, who had visibly startled upon hearing her name, hissed, "Not now. We can talk on the way to Ding Darling. Don't say anything." "Okay," Graham stuttered as the line in front of them fell from 12 bunnies to 10, while behind them 4 more bunnies joined the queue. As the line moved forward, Graham watched the anxious faces of his fellow doe bunnies, listened to the terse and tense voices with which everyone spoke, and wondered what on earth was going on. Bluebell, upon reaching the head of the line, whispered, "I'll wait by the bridge. Be careful and be quiet," she said before stepping forward, EEC in paw, and began being interrogated by a pair of bunnies who were collecting the Easter egg carriers. The first bunny took Bluebell's EEC while the other asked, "Name?" "Bluebell." "Delivery location?" asked the Inquisitor. "Well," Bluebell said, "it was supposed to..." "City and coordinates only. You'll receive a dope questionnaire where you can add commentary. City and coordinates." "Ames, Iowa, 42 degrees 3 seconds north, 93 degrees 37 minutes, 43.3 seconds west." "That's all," the bunny said. "You are required to respond to the dope questionnaire. Be sure to do so. Happy Easter. You're dismissed." Bluebell nodded to her Inquisitor, turned towards Graham and mouthed, "By the bridge," then exited into the pre-dawn of Easter as Graham stepped forward, relinquished his EEC, and reported 43.1527 degrees north, 93.2027 degrees west, before likewise being dismissed and then exiting the building. As Graham and Bluebell walked from home from the Des Moines US 6 MLK Jr. Dobe Easter Bunny transfer station, he had to repeatedly remind himself about the necessity of keeping his head in the game vis-a-vis predators as the pair compared notes about their April 20th, 2025 Easter Bunny experience. This was your first time, right? Bluebell asked. You were part of this Dobe Bunny Blitzkrieg? Yeah, Graham replied. I mean, yes, this was my first time, but what's a blitzkrieg? Shaking her head in sorrow, Bluebell said, It means lightning strike, and I'm afraid that name's appropriate for two reasons. The speed at which your training was conceived, developed, and implemented, along with all the fires that this so-called extensive training caused. Mother Mary, what a mess. There were fires? Graham gasped. No, Bluebell said, twisting her head back and forth. Not literally, just my, oh my, what a mess. This was my 4th year as an EB, and it was an unmitigated disaster, at least for me. How'd your assignment go? Not well, Graham said quietly. They sent me to the wrong place, he said, adding, to the very wrong place, with vehemence. Yeah, I heard that a lot. Did you get your eggs delivered? Well, that is yes, but I got a lot of help. They sent me to Brazil, in South America, and I was stuck there for over 2 hours, and they didn't even notice. And I know I'm not the only one, and that if I hadn't received help in notifying them being that Christopher and his fellow tech, Corsetti and Edward, I might still be in Brazil, and the dozens of other bunnies who got sent to the wrong place might still be lost too. It was a real snafu. Situation normal, all fouled up. That's what I heard. Wow, I wonder what our Make Rabbits Great Again official Department of Bunny Efficiency form is going to look like. This was an absolute mess. It's almost like they wanted us to fail, she said, stopping at a split in the trail. My burrow's that way. Happy Easter. Get some sleep. And let me know when you get your form, okay? I want to stay on top of this. Okay, I will, Graham said. I hope things get worked out. I don't have anything to compare this with, but it wasn't good. Happy Easter, he said before they exchanged a quick nose kiss, and he hurried to his home while she scurried to hers. Graham, after carefully and quietly descending into his bunny hole, stood with ears at maximum extension as he listened for sounds of life from his parents' bedroom, the bathroom, kitchen, or den. Hearing no creature stirring, not even a mouse, he sighed inwardly, then tiptoed as quietly as he was capable to the bathroom before going to his bedroom. It wasn't that he didn't want to see his parents. He did, desperately. But what he wanted first and foremost was to slip into his bed and sleep for a few hours before speaking to anyone, and that included his dad or mom. Come 4:44 ante meridian Easter morning, the first tint of light would begin flirting with the stars, said hour roughly coinciding with the earliest risers among Des Moines bunnies slipping out of their beds. By 5:21, any bunny with 20/20 vision would be able to see the twilight of early morning, and by 6:25, God's sun would have risen to the grandeur of luscious pink brushstrokes along the eastern horizon. At 8 p.m., following its long arc to the west, Sol's setting would bring peak to the western sky, its light easily seen for an additional 30 minutes before declaring lights out at 9:05. After being awakened nearly 6 hours earlier and traveling to the bunny transfer station filled with joyful anticipation, Graham had experienced extreme disappointment at the pause of the Dobe duo of Stanley Christopher and Corsetti Edward, great excitement upon his first Easter Bunny transport, complete unnerving as he was cast downward 5,000 plus miles, hope resurrected upon being befriended by Monkey-Joe, exhilaration and veneration while speaking to St. Anthony of Padua, anger over the continued arrogance and ignorance of his dope technician nemesis, confidence when transported to Mason City, despair as he feared his Easter egg delivery required the very patience of Job, the unmatched strength of an unshorn Samson, plus the speed of Esau. He had his faith rekindled when God again delivered SAOP to him in his hour of need, while likewise delivering to him an army of baby bunnies to deliver his 1,728 Easter eggs before 5:22, all culminating with his return to a chaotic and discombobulated transfer station. Truly exhausted, Graham managed a tiny prayer of thanks before slipping into his bed, closing his eyes, and wishing for nothing other than a few hours of sleep, instead hearing a gentle knocking upon his door. "Graham, his mother Beatrice asked. "May I come in?" Her voice simultaneously bringing him peace while crushing his hopes for a much-needed nap. Torn between his need for sleep and his desire to share the unprecedented events of the previous 5 hours with his parents, Beatrix and Stanley, Graham followed his mother into her bedroom and climbed into bed between her and his father. Snuggled between two bunnies who loved him more than life itself, he verbally sketched the barest outline concerning his experience. While Graham's Easter Bunny christening had been subjective to the extreme, he worked hard to present his outline objectively, and after sharing the highs and lows of his Easter morning, he fell asleep between his adoring parents. Beatrix had left their bed soon after they snuggled against each other. Graham and Stanley had fallen asleep together. Stanley slept for another hour, then joined his wife. Trying not to disturb their son, his proud but concerned parents quietly went about their morning, and at 11 a.m. USOR Central Time, they turned on their television to watch the BBS's coverage of USOR President Plumpty Trumpy and Dobe Chairman Elon Muskrat's Clover Office Easter Update press conference. A beaming and bombastic Trumpy and Muskrat were joyously describing the absolute perfection of the inaugural Dobe Easter Bunny Brigade's unmitigated triumph when Graham joined his parents on the couch. Sitting side by side in overstuffed chairs, Trumpy and Muskrat detailed statistic after statistic that proved how this year's Easter Bunnies had outwitted, outplayed, and outlasted every Easter Bunny delivery not only since 1776, but since the first Easter in 33 A.D., Plumpy said, "Our Dobe Easter Bunny Brigade was flawless, absolutely perfect. Not a single egg broken. Every bunny finished his deliveries within the 1 hour before sunrise limit that Elon established, and it was all done at minimal cost to the USFR, with eggs that were made right here in the USR. Nobody's ever delivered Easter eggs better than Elon's Dobe bunnies. No bunny." Graham's eyes bulged as he pulled his head backwards towards his tail and asked, "What? What are they talking about? I mean, first of all, Easter bunnies hadn't been established when Jesus rose, and I can say for sure that her deliveries were anything but flawless. I mean, like I said, I wasn't the only bunny who got sent to the wrong place from my transfer station, and I almost had to punch that Stanley Christopher just to send me to Mason City. This can't be right. It can't be." The following week demonstrated very clearly that Graham's declaration that something was very rotten not only in Denmark, Iowa, but apparently throughout all of the United States of Rabbits. Graham received his official Dobe questionnaire via B-mail that clearly and emphatically stated that any bunny who wished to continue as an Easter bunny was required to complete and return the form no later than May 1st, but lacked the promised comment section. Unsure if he wanted to remain a Dobe Easter Bunny, Graham used a number 2 pencil and carefully filled in his questionnaire. Well before the May 1st deadline, it became clear to Graham that he was not alone in his feelings of dissatisfaction with the Dobe Bunny Brigade's actions when marches began popping up on April 24th. Within a week's time, organized protest marches concerning the lack of transparency were organized all over the USOR, and Easter bunnies were sharing their horror stories online, on Twitter, in newspaper editorials, and via local and national news. At first, President Plumpty insisted the stories were wrong, that the protesters were bunnies who had failed the Dobe requirements and were spreading vicious lies. But as evidence grew, Plumpty's story changed. Trumpy promised a thorough investigation, and he delivered it. The USOR Bunny Congress held multiple hearings, and just in time for the 2026 midterm elections, Congress revealed that field mice led by B. Clear had sabotaged the Dobe improvements in retaliation for their long-standing grievance with the Little Bunny Foo-Foo Brigade. The field mice grievance dated back to the 1861 Field Mice War of Aggression, and 18 years after the bloody Civil War, the ongoing acts of field mice aggression had led to the Little Bunny Foo-Foo Brigade being established in 1879. Across 5 Aprils, from April 1861 until April 16, 1865, bunnies had battled field mice, but in the end, bunnies had triumphed. However, many of the defeated field mice were employing guerrillas to attack the bunnies. By 1879, the Field Mice Guerrilla Alliance had become bold enough to perpetrate so many slash and burn acts of terrorism against bunnies that Foo-Foo established his brigade. And, according to President Trumpy, it was a newly revitalized contingent of field mice who would sabotage Dobe's inaugural Easter Bunny Brigade of 2025. Fortunately for all, Trumpy's Ice Ice Baby Brigade was able to restore order so thoroughly that the over-under weighed heavily on the side of Easter bunnies, reigning supreme through at least 3535 AD.